Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. A ton of things going on in the NBA right now. Finally, teams can put pen to paper, sign their players, not just come to an agreement, but sign guys. And we've got a lot of players now who have finally found their landing spot for next season. Keith, look, free agency has been fast and furious, but a lot of these ones that have come in over the last 24 hours or so, I think are some of the most interesting deals we've seen so far, especially since we're seeing some extensions starting to come through now.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into the extension stuff in just a minute, but outside of those, the value
Mm-hmm.
deals are coming in now. We're starting to get the guys who are coming in for part of an exception, not even the whole thing in some cases, re-signing on bird rights and early bird rights and things like that. So a lot of stuff still going on in the league. Teams are still working, and we'll cover it at the end of the show. But there's still a handful of names out there that don't have a
And
home,
uh,
and we don't know what's going
and
on
there's a
yet.
few teams that have roster spots. There's some players like Dennis
Yep.
Schroder that are very high profile guys that are still out there that a lot of fans have been making a lot of jokes about Schroder out there, but it looks like he may end up ending with your team, and we're going to get into that in just a bit. The Lakers still have 3 open roster spots sitting there, but I think the biggest thing to start with right now is Kevin Durant, who right now is tearing it up for Team USA. He's their go-to guy, clearly the best player on the team, the guy who is putting the team on his shoulders. And now he gets a new 4-year extension with the Brooklyn Nets for 198 million. This is the kind of situation, Keith, where Kevin Durant says, I want an extension. I want it to be for this much money. I want it to be for this many years. And the Brooklyn Nets say, here you go. Right. I mean, that's the extent of the
Yep.
negotiation.
100%. Yeah. Kevin Durant has been great. I know there's health concerns, and, he didn't play in a ton of games last season and missed a lot of time, but he was healthy at the end, and he's been clearly healthy in the Olympics. And let me add, we can all go outside of Nets fans, we can all go back to rooting against him after tonight.
Right.
Tonight, I'll be the biggest Kevin Durant fan in the world, along with the other 11 guys. And let's do it, USA. Let's bring home the gold. Let's get this done. We gave France the one. Let's not give them the other one
That's right.
tonight, right? But yeah, KD, I get it. I know people who are concerned about this, and they're like, "That's a lot of money." I think it's 54 million in the
Mm-hmm.
final season, something around that range. And it's kind of the same thing with Steph Curry, right? Where it's a ton of money in that final year. But the reality is, if you're the Nets, you're not going to care if you win a
Mm-hmm.
championship in the next 2 seasons. It's not about that for them. So, and the reality comes down to, if he said, I want an extension, and you said no,
Exactly.
you can either screw it up in the next year or two, or you could be all screwed up in 4 years from now, when it maybe is not a great contract. So I think overall, let's take care of the here and now, and we'll deal with the future in the future. And hopefully, if you're a Nets fan, you're raising a championship and go. So I would do this 100 times out of 100. If I was the Nets side, I wouldn't even think
And his
twice.
game is not completely predicated on athleticism. I mean, look, he's already recovered from an Achilles injury and he seems to be pretty much back to his old self. So looking at this and saying, "Oh, well, Kevin Durant, he's going to be 37 or whatever when this deal's at the end." Who's to say
Hmm.
he's not still good at 30? Now, will he be $54 million good? Who knows? The salary cap might keep
Yeah.
going up. There's going to be a new TV deal. He could very well be worth that. Right. So to just assume that it's
Yep.
going to be a bad deal, I think that is a dangerous way of thinking. And the Nets, like you said, what are they going to do? Say no and then risk chemistry right now? No,
Exactly.
you're going to say yes to that 100%.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Another guy found a landing spot finally, and that's Kelly Oubre Jr. with the Charlotte Hornets, 2 years, $26 million. There's a lot of people out there that will say Kelly Oubre Jr. He's not really that good of a player and all this kind of stuff. I think this is a nice deal for the Charlotte Hornets. You never know with Gordon Hayward in
I do
terms of
too.
injury. I think this is a really fair deal for him. It's minimal risk on a 2-year contract. And he's another big wing in a league that right now uses a lot of switching defenses that require big wings. So to me, this makes a lot of sense for the Hornets. I think it's a nice addition.
I agree. I think what the Hornets are doing is really setting up to be able to switch
Mm-hmm.
everything with that team. You can play a lot of guys with size on that roster now, between LaMelo, Hayward, Oubre. Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, even Mason Plumlee is not awful in a switching defense. He can kind of hold his own. He's probably better in that than in your drop style coverage because he's not great as a rim protector, as a
Hmm.
head on rim protection guy. So I think that team's really set themselves up nicely. You mentioned the health concerns. I also think we're starting to transition into PJ Washington may be their backup center in addition to being their starting power
Yeah.
forward. And I think that's going to be kind of how that plays out with that team because they maybe they still bring back Bismack Biyombo or somebody like that on the cheap to fill out the end of the bench. But Vernon Carey, sorry, the puppy's playing with a toy right now. She's bouncing out. Not the new puppy, not
No.
Tatum, who will be joining the family here in another couple weeks, but the other puppy, because we're maniacs with having young dogs at once. But yeah, back on track here. Yeah, it's Vernon Carey Jr. and Nick
Hmm.
Richards right now behind Mason Plumlee. So my guess is Oubre gives them the ability to then slide Washington up to play a lot of those backup 5 minutes with Oubre and Bridges, and you've got good size at the forward spot. So all around, I think this is a good addition for Charlotte. And if you kind of look at their in versus out, it was Mason Plumlee, Ish Smith, and Kelly Oubre in with Devontae Graham, Cody Zeller, and Malik Monk out. Not
No, that's
bad,
not bad.
right? I think that's okay. And then there are draft picks also coming in too, which will be better than their end of bench guys. So all around, I think Charlotte's had a fairly nice
Yeah,
offseason.
a team on the rise for sure. Before we move on to our next team, though, I do want to stop and mention, guys, we're so appreciative of everybody who has said so many wonderful things so far about this show, everybody who has subscribed. We're looking at the last few videos, the live shows that we've been doing lately to kind of keep everybody informed of what's been going on in free agency. Those have been blowing up. Make sure if you haven't done it yet, please do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as
Yes.
well. This channel just continues to grow, and we are amazed and blown away by it. And we love you guys. There's been so many people coming into our live chats. This has been a ton of fun. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't done so yet, please make sure you do subscribe.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people, I think, each two hitting us up on
Hmm.
Twitter, telling us they didn't know, one of the two of us, a lot of the Lakers fans coming to me because they clearly were following you and vice versa. So I
Hmm.
think that's pretty cool too. And, so some people have asked, but we'll save it for a rainy day
Yeah.
when the content is a little dry. How in the world Lakers and Celtics guys ended up hosting a podcast together? But we'll tell that story at some point. It's really not all that
It's not.
interesting. I don't think, but enough people have asked that we'll tell the story at some point. But until then, we'll leave you in
That's
suspense.
right.
Where are we going next?
Next, we're going to the Bucks and the Grizzlies. Actually, pull off a trade, not a signing, a trade here. Grayson
Yeah.
Allen going from the Grizzlies to the Milwaukee Bucks for 2 second-round picks and Sam Merrill. I mean, this is on in the margins type move for the Bucks, but
Hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. Look, Grayson Allen can come on, he could score, he can help you out a little bit there. It's not like he's filling a PJ Tucker role or anything like that, certainly, but
No.
he's it's a worthwhile investment for that price.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they did really here, if you think about it, is they added their backup point guard in
Mhm.
George Hill. So he's going to come in. That's an upgrade over Jeff Teague at this point. And then Grayson Allen comes in as a backup two that they didn't really have because I was kind of Pat Connaughton last year, but I think they like him playing more of a three type role
Mhm.
on this team. And then they re-signed Bobby Portis. We'll see if they can get anything out of Rodney Hood. We don't know, what he's got left just after years of injuries. And then Semi Ojeleye comes in. He's kind of the PJ poor man's PJ Tucker,
Right.
destitute man's PJ Tucker. I don't know how you want to describe that one, but not bad, for a team that had very, very limited ability to build out a roster. What this does say to me, though, is two things. One, on the Milwaukee side, is they're adding to their tax bill with this
Mhm.
move because they could have just waived Sam Merrill and 500K and just moved on and saved about $1 million. But instead, in this move, they added about 3.6 million extra dollars with Grayson Allen. And that has to feel good if you're Giannis, Chris
Sure.
Middleton, Drew Holiday, Brooke Lopez, those veteran guys that, hey, all right, they're not going to leave us out to dry. It protects them if Dante DiVincenzo's not ready to go right at the beginning of the season.
Mhm.
That is good too because they'll have Allen in that role. Look, I get it. Nobody really likes Grayson Allen. Totally get that. but the guy can shoot. He can handle the ball a little bit. He's a pretty good passer. So on the court, this is a good move. Let's flip to the Memphis side if we
Yeah,
can, real quick here, because so a lot of people said, well, what was the point of this for Memphis? This is a downgrade, all of this and that. Yes, but the reality is that team has a ton of
they
guards,
do.
A ton of guards.
Desmond
So they,
Bain
they had to
deserves
start.
minutes in there for sure.
hmm Absolutely. Desmond Bain, you got D'Anthony Melton,
Mhm.
Dylan Brooks is really a two guard. Ultimately, you also have, John Morant, of course, at the point. You have Tyus Jones at the, point behind him. So you've got all kinds of guards. Um, but I think this signifies a little bit more flexibility for the Grizzlies because my guess is they're going to waive Merrill before he becomes fully guaranteed. And then if they want to move Eric Bledsoe in a trade to bring in a bigger salary than maybe what they could have before, they now have the ability to do that. So I think Memphis is they're not done. I think you're going to see them be a late mover here in free agency. They also lost Justice Winslow, who we'll talk about in a minute, but we knew that was happening after they declined the $13 million team option for him anyway.
Right, right. And we've talked about that move quite a bit and why that made sense for
Yeah.
the Memphis Grizzlies. Jumping over to the LA Clippers, Reggie Jackson, as
Yeah.
expected.
Winslow's new home.
Yeah, well, it's a perfect segue here.
Just like we planned.
I guess let's just go Winslow first. So 2-year deal
Okay,
for
sure.
Justice Winslow.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
are some reports out there that he could find his way into the starting lineup with Kawhi Leonard out.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so this for him this makes a ton of sense because of the opportunity. He's a guy who very much needs to prove it, and so if he can find
Yep.
a starting spot on a Clippers team, that's a great opportunity to prove himself for sure.
Yeah, team two that doesn't need him to do a lot
Hmm.
offensively. They've got some offensive players already. They really need him to defend, fill the wing, and transition, be a playmaker when the ball comes his way, and just kind of hopefully refine his rhythm here.
Right.
This is probably sounds like part of the taxpayer mid level is my guess for Winslow. We didn't get reported terms, but we did find out Nick Batum, by all reports, he is resigning using his early bird rights. So that's how he's going to get his bump and pay off of that to 2 years. So that left the taxpayer mid level. So we'll see. But early bird rights came into play to resign Reggie Jackson.
Right.
He's going to come back on a 2-year deal. Did not take the absolute most amount of money he could have. He backed off just a little bit over 2 years,
Hmm.
but 2 years, 22 million, more than fair. For the way he played last season and especially the way he played in the playoffs and how much they need him with Kawhi likely out most, if not all, of the season.
And after he gave that emotional speech about the Clippers and how much they meant to him and how they revitalized his career and all those sorts of things, very moving stuff. But it was very clear that he was not going anywhere, and that's why you saw teams not even bother bidding for him or anything like that. They knew he was going back to the Clippers. I think this is again a very very fair deal. Look, if he continues playing the way he did in the playoffs, where at one point I thought he was the best point guard left in the playoffs, he was tremendous. So this is a nice signing
He
for
outplayed
them.
Chris Paul in
Yeah.
that series.
Hmm.
I thought at least I thought he was the best guard. Well, Booker was the best guard in the series,
Sure.
but I thought Reggie Jackson was the second best, and that's saying a lot because Chris Paul wasn't bad.
No.
So
And
yeah,
shot tremendously well, over 40% from 3 for
mhm,
the entire season, and then even picked it up a little bit
yeah.
more in the playoffs. Great stuff for him.
And he's a guy who knows how to play alongside. That's all he got miscast when he went to Detroit. And it was a worthy gamble by the Pistons
Hmm.
back in the day to say, all right, this guy's been a reserve his whole career. Can he be more?
Right.
And we found out, yeah,
Not really.
he can be a starter, but if he's your second best player, you probably have a pretty serious limit on how good your team's going to be. But you put him in there and he's your fourth, fifth, sixth best player. That's not too bad.
No.
You're probably a pretty good team at that point. Last thing on the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard.
Just minor.
Chris Haynes reported he's coming back. We don't know for how long, but
Yeah.
we've been saying on this show forever. Kawhi goes to the Clippers and says, much like you just said with Kevin Durant, this is what I want.
Yep.
And the Clippers say, great, give us enough time to print it out and we'll have it ready for you to sign in a matter of minutes. Like that's all this is about. It's just going to be whatever Kawhi wants, deal term wise. My guess is he signs a 1+1,
Hmm.
opts out after 1 year, and then resigns using his full bird rights. And LA is for the remainder of the good years of his career, he's a Clipper.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's going to be the 1+1, and I do think this was speculation that was out there that Kawhi, part of the reason why it took a little while for him to really come out that, hey, he's going back to the Clippers, is that he wanted to be able to have some discussions with other teams because he is going to take a 1+1. And if things
Yep.
fall apart with the Clippers, he wants to get a sense for what other teams are going to be doing, and those teams can't talk to him once he's locked into the Clippers. So even though teams didn't have money to spend on him, he could at least go out there and kind of get a sense for what may be their next off season. And who
Yep.
knows, he may not play this season. We'll have to see how his recovery goes.
Yeah. If he does, it's going to be late
Mm-hmm.
in the year, is my guess. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie made it back from a similar-ish injury. We don't know how, you know, similar they are in actual, diagnosis, but he was close to coming back at the end of the year.
Right.
So maybe Kawhi could get back around the All-Star break, or maybe just after, or something like that. So we'll see. And that team's good enough; they should hang in the playoff
Mm-hmm.
race, with even without him, for a while. So.
Um, your now hometown team, the Orlando Magic, Mo Wagner,
Yeah,
bringing in the
Mo
brother, the
Wagner.
brother of
Yeah,
Franz
that's
Wagner.
it.
Yeah. So this is
Walking up, brothers.
Yeah, this is just simple signing, 2-year deal. It's not going to be a major impact piece or anything like that. But in terms of just, having another guy in there that can play with that kind of ferocity and have that kind of energy out on the floor, I think that's a good thing. And then you've got the family connection for a prized rookie that you've just drafted. So
Yep.
I think it's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is going to be likely 2 years at the minimum, or really close. Probably not much more than that. He actually played pretty well
Hmm.
for them too, down the stretch last season, for a team that really needed some help. So yeah, I like this one with Mo Wagner coming back to Orlando for, likely next to nothing. It's funny because a couple people have said, why aren't the Magic more involved in certain things? When you have a chance, if you really want to know, go look at their roster. It's basically
Yeah.
full, and it's full of guys that they pretty much like and want to try to get some minutes for. That's part of, when you've drafted so many guys and you made a bunch of trades where you sent one or two players out in a trade and got back, 3 and 4 guys in these trades, that the roster got filled up very quickly. So, and this is a team too. We'll talk about it more when we do team
Right.
previews for next season, but I think they're going to be very active still, because you've got some veterans that if they show that they're healthy and look pretty good, I think they'll look to move on from those guys as they kind of continue this rebuild. This is going to be a couple years at least for Orlando as they build this thing back up. But they're going to be one of the must-watch teams in summer league. Their summer league roster is loaded
Yeah.
with fun guys that I can't wait to see.
Yeah, me too. I'm thrilled for that. Before we jump to your team, Mark Stein just reported that the Chris Paul deal with the Phoenix Suns is indeed official,
Yep.
which is what we're expecting to see today. A lot of these, okay, these deals we already knew about becoming official, going through, and they're done. Let's
Yep.
jump to your team though. The Boston Celtics reportedly offering an extension to Marcus Smart, 4 years, $77 million. How are you feeling about that dollar amount there? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that got kind of refuted just slightly, the
Oh,
total
okay.
dollars in that after. I think Mark Murphy, who tweeted it, he works for the Herald. He's one of the Celtics beat writers. He came back and said 17 million a year. So it's not a meaningful enough amount. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think if you're the Marcus Smart side, a lot of teams, and I'll have a full run of projected cap space over at Spot Track after deals start flowing in, because it's really kind of a foolish exercise to do right now with not knowing official deals,
Right.
because we're going to find out some of these deals were front loaded and it's going to
Sure.
be cheaper next year than it was this year, and those kind of things. But as deals go official, after most of them are in there, I'll run a 2022 projection. But just eyeballing it, a lot of teams took themselves out of having cap space next year. So that's part of why, if you're the Marcus Smart side, I think you're looking at it and saying, all right, let's try to lock something in. If there's a lot of Celtics fans that are like, does this take us out of the Bradley Beal running? Well, I have two thoughts on that. My first overall thought is, we have no indication Bradley Beal wants to leave
Right. Not
Washington.
yet.
Last actual word we had was he told general manager Tommy Shepard he did not want to leave. They just went in to add a whole bunch of guys around him to try to make him happy. Do I think they built a title team this offseason? No. But I do think that they built a team that maybe makes a little bit more sense for them, and we'll see how it comes together. So I think with that part of it, that's part one of this. Second part is, no, it doesn't take him out of the running, because what it still does is it gives them options. 17 million for Marcus Smart. guys, we got to start recalibrating. 17 to 20 million is not a big contract anymore. Now, I mean, we've got guys on cap sheets making $50 million almost.
Mhm.
It's now 17 millions. Like that's what you pay a low end starter and a high end role player. It's just that's the reality where these numbers are going. So that's a perfectly fine deal for him. It also opens them up to maybe be able to do a sign and trade with the Wizards if that's the direction they wanted to go with Beal, or if in season if Beal's like I'm out, I don't want to do this anymore. They're set up to do something like that. If that's really really wanted to go, I continue to believe that would take Beal saying pulling in Anthony Davis. I think
Yep.
I've said this on this show
Mhm.
before. Of I'm going to Boston no matter what, make it happen, figure it out right now. So yeah, so I don't mind that one. The one I'm not enthused about is the Dennis Schroder reports.
Oh
I
boy.
Yeah,
Let's talk about this. So right now, Dennis Schroder doesn't really have a market, right? We've talked about how he turned down 4 years, 84 million with the Lakers. That obviously is very much looking like a mistake at this point. Everybody else pretty much filled in their rosters in terms of their point guard openings, and the cap space is drying up. And now we're hearing the Boston Celtics might be the team to go after Dennis Schroder. I guess, look, Keith, it drives me a little bit crazy when we look at a player and we look at their contract and we can say, oh, Dennis Schroder, he's not worth $100 million over 4 years. Okay, that's perfectly fair, right? And we can say, okay, he got his comeuppance a little bit, that he would, throw away this offer that a lot of people thought was for more than market value, and now he's kind of left out in the cold, right? So there were a lot of joking going
yeah.
around online and all that, but lost in all that is the fact that he can actually play basketball. He's still
Yeah, we don't have to turn it immediately to he
no,
sucks.
and that's what it becomes. That's what
Yeah,
it jumps to. You
yeah,
see so many people who just say, "Oh, he's terrible. He can't do it." No, he can bring positive things to a basketball team. Now, you can say those things are things that I don't think fits with this team or fits with that team, or maybe it fits here, maybe it fits there, but it's not like this
correct.
guy should be out of the NBA, right? And I've seen the
No,
discussion
God no.
go that
Yeah,
direction a little too often.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big Dennis Schroeder fan.
No,
I'm just not. I think he's had one really good year in the NBA. The one year when he almost won Sixth Man of the Year, or did he win it? Almost,
almost.
right? I
He was
don't
the
think he
runner-up
did
to
win it,
Montrezl
right?
Harrell.
To
Yep.
Montresero. That's right. Yeah, and so that part I have no issue with whatsoever. I think he is still a valuable player. My challenge for the Celtics is one is there's locker room issues with Dennis Schroeder. We all know
Yep.
this. It's been widely reported. It was reported in Atlanta. It was reported to some extent in OKC, but I think Chris Paul kind of kept him under control there. And then it was reported in LA that there were some issues, not to the point of like we got to be careful with this stuff because I think people think this means guys are throwing hands
No.
at each other. It's not that. It's just Dennis Schroeder clearly, when he said, nah, 21 million a year isn't enough for me, clearly has a pretty big thoughts of what he is as a
Yep.
player. And sometimes I think that rubs some of his teammates the wrong way. I think there's times when it's, hey man, you're a sixth man quality guy, and
Right.
that's fine. I mean, some guys, yeah, I always point to once Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford figured that out, those two guys cranked out, what'll be close to 20-year careers, by the time they're both done. And that's awesome. I think
Hmm.
Jordan Clarkson's a perfect example right now. Went from a guy who was just I'm gonna gun and I'm gonna take my numbers to now I figured out my role and off I go. So yeah, so I think that is a position where we really look at this and we say, all right, we're there, right? Well, we're there with Dennis Schroeder. We kind of have a sense for the Celtics. The problem is if you're going to give them the mid level,
The taxpayer.
whether it be the
Yeah.
taxpayer or it's going to be part of the non taxpayer, if you can get to that, or the
Hmm.
full non taxpayer, if you can get to that amount, it's going to push you back into the tax anyway. And that's been kind of my issue. Is I don't know about this. I also don't love the idea of I don't want him taking the ball out of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown's hands. I don't want him stunting the growth of the guys on the second unit. If it was a 1 year deal for the taxpayer mid level, it's not the end of the world. It seems like that, what I was told right before we started recording, was the Celtics want to do a 1 year deal. He wants either more money or a longer term deal.
Mm,
Either one. And that's where I think that's where it's kind of sticking. Ideally, he wants more money and a longer
well,
term deal.
sure.
I just don't know where that's coming from. And I think what he would like is a sign and trade for more money where he goes in, and people started, hey, the Tristan Thompson trade's not done yet.
Right.
Could we sign? It was funny. Somebody threw out there and I was like, look, I'm all for it just for the madness of it. Could that get roped into the Lakers, Wizards, Nets, Spurs, Pacers trade
Oh.
and make it let's do it as an eight
Let's
team
go
trade that has,
crazy.
20.
8-team
Yeah, let's have,
trade.
50 players involved by the
Yeah.
end. I'd be psyched just because I mean, the mechanics of it would be
It would
absolute
take 4
madness.
hours to
And I
break
would
it
love
down.
it. Exactly. Yeah, we'll come back and do a half day show
Yeah.
just on that. But yeah, I don't think that's the way it's gonna go. I think that Tristan Thompson trade, I've been told, is probably gonna happen now all the way back to what it was originally reported as, with the three teams, and that'll be how it goes. But yeah, but Schroder, we'll see. I mean, it's something's gonna have to give one side or another here, right? He's gonna have to eventually at some point say, all right, I can't do, I'm not going to get what I thought I could get.
Hmm.
I gotta, I need to maybe take a pay cut, eat a little humble pie here for a year, go out and ball out. Here's my last worry with him, whatever team he lands on, after coming off of not getting the contract he thought he deserved, now he's on a 1 year deal. I
Yep.
mean, that has the chance to go sideways real
Mhm.
quick. And I would want to be very, if I was that team, very willing to say, we're out. We're cutting the cord, whether it be via trade or a straight waiver, and just not deal with it. Because if he comes in gunning and I'm gonna take 25 shots a night and all these other things, it has a chance to get real messy, real fast.
We in Los Angeles got that sense, right? Real quick. That look, the Lakers, they brought him in, and I thought it was a perfectly fine deal. I thought his skill set fit, all of that. And then right out of the gate, he was demanding a starting spot. And everybody else on the team was saying, I don't care what my role is, sacrifice for the greater good. We just want to win, that type of
Yeah.
thing. Schroeder was, oh, no, I want to start.
Yeah.
And made it clear it was going to be an issue if you didn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is something to be aware of. But do you think this gets done? End of the day, which is by the way
In
his favorite
Boston,
phrase. Do you think at the end of the day, Dennis Schroeder lands in Boston?
no, I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't think they're gonna get there. I mean, maybe, but I have a feeling that neither side's gonna get there unless he really says, all right, there's a role for me there, so I will take it and I'll go and play. But yeah, I think he's gonna end up somewhere else. I don't know, just a feeling I have. I
Okay.
don't. I think this is one where it's just gonna there's gonna be too many pieces. Let's see, if whenever this Tristan Thompson trade actually happens, and what form or fashion it takes, I'll have a much better feel for that after. If I, then I know, all right, well, Don and Fernando did come to Boston. The other thing the Celtics are running into right now is roster spots. They don't have any left right now if they do that trade that way, which means they're gonna have to eat a deal or two, and that becomes a little tough when you're trying
Right.
to avoid the luxury tax if you can. So, yeah, that's a lot on the Celtics. So let's move on to somebody else. I'm already tired of them.
Let's jump over to my team real quick, just on something that's
Yeah.
fairly minor here. But well, they okay. So 3 open roster spots still for the Lakers, so they're going to look and find some other players out there. Obviously, they were in the mix for Lou Williams, who we're going to talk about in just a bit. Didn't land him. They were in the mix for another guy we're going to talk about in a minute, Andre Iguodala. Didn't land him, but we know they're going to be out there aggressive on the market, trying to fill those roster spots. Maybe leave one open for somebody coming out of camp, somebody coming out of summer league, something
Hmm.
there. But the biggest thing, and I talked about this over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, was that they got another second round pick in the Russell Westbrook trade, which, by the way, as of
Yeah.
this moment, has not officially been executed just yet. But again, all of this
It's
stuff
because they're
is
making it an 18,
it's
40 player
because it's going to
trade.
be a massive deal. But they did get another pick because the Nets and the Spurs were added into the deal. Our sense is that the Lakers basically said, well, you know what, if the Nets are going to be added in and the Nets are getting a trade exception out of moving Spencer Dinwiddie, and we're making one of our potential rivals for a championship stronger, we're giving them stuff, the deal
Yep.
becomes less appealing to us. We need to be compensated for that. And so the Wizards said, fine, here's a 2023 second round pick from Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, then that's what you should do if
Mm-hmm.
you're the Lakers.
100%.
You should absolutely be pushing, and I mean, not just any team, right? So good work by Rob Pelinka and staff to say, all right, hey, cool, we'll play, but let's, where we need something out of this. Can we jump to the Nets side of that
Let's do it.
real
Yeah.
quick? Because it didn't. Fred Katz, all the credit in the world to him, because he was the only one I saw who finally put together all the moving pieces
Hmm.
in this trade, which is not easy to do with 5 players and I think 18 total things moved,
Yeah.
created out of this. Which is crazy. So shout out to Fred. He's the Athletic. He covers the Washington Wizards. The Nets got the draft rights of Nikola Milutinov from the San Antonio Spurs. He was a first round draft pick a while back. He can actually play a little bit. Now he's getting a little older.
Hmm.
He's a 7-foot center. He plays, the last I knew, I don't know where he's going to be this year, but I believe he's still there, was for Cheska Moscow. And he can actually play. He says somebody who can actually do some stuff. So I'm very curious to see how that it may never have any impact at all. But maybe it does, but just something, a little extra thing thrown in as the Spurs were added. And I think that was the Nets kind of payment for, they got 2 second-round picks and his draft rights out of, because the Nets could have said, no, we're not doing it as a sign and trade,
Right.
figure it out another way. So that's how they got paid. So, good on them for, jumping in there. Brooklyn also, just to close the book on the Nets here, they signed DeAndre
Yep.
Bembry,
That was next.
1 year, contract for
Hmm.
him be at the minimum. We know this because they gave Patty Mills the non-taxpayer, so they're down only minimums left. I like it. Good low cost flyer for them. Veteran guard can come in, can kind of play the 2 or the 3 for them, do a little bit of ball handling. So, just not bad. Work out of the Nets.
And just for completion, so what I've seen is that the Nets got a second round pick and a second round pick swap. As
Swap,
that
yes,
on that
yeah,
deal.
you're right.
Let's jump to the Warriors. The winner of the Andre Iguodala
Yeah,
sweepstakes between the Warriors, the Nets, and the Lakers. Sounds like he has indeed decided to return to Golden State. Talked about how he would really like to kind of come full circle and finish his career in Golden State. Makes a lot of sense in that regard. So not a surprise. It should be a veteran minimum deal, Andre Iguodala to the
yep,
Warriors.
yeah. It sounds like it is the minimum, which that would still leave their taxpayer mid-level
Mhm.
open because Otto Porter Jr. and Nemanja Bjelica both signed minimum deals as well. So just something for the Warriors if they need it. We know they've done nothing to hard cap themselves.
Yeah.
So it's at this point it's just more Joe Lacob's money. So it's a lot more. I want to say it's, so let's call that 5.9 million. Let's make the math easy. It's like 6 million, but in
Mhm.
actual cost, I think because of where it would push them and the repeater
Oh.
tax and the bracket, I think it ends up being $40 million.
Oh God.
So, so think about it, right? I mean, let's say let's say they wanted to sign Dennis Schroder to
Mhm.
it. It's essentially, in effect, you're paying him $40 million.
That was the situation with Kelly Oubre, where making that deal to get him, it
Mm-hmm.
was like you were going to pay,
Yep.
what was, you were paying him 9 million, but the total cost was like
No, it was like
80.
13 or
But
something, but
it
yeah,
came
like
out
the
to like
cost was
80.
like 70.
Yeah, it was something
Yeah, it
nuts.
was nuts. Yeah. Hey, so this one just kind of came across.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the Raptors next because I think this part is interesting. So Kyle Lowry's salary came in a little lower than the initial
Oh,
reports, and
okay.
guys, this is going to happen regularly. Where we'll have seen reports of 3 years, 90 million or whatever
Hmm.
the case may be. But it came in at 3 years, 85, and why that actually matters is that's a low enough first year salary that all the Heat had to send in that sign and trade was Goran Dragic and Precious Achua, which is now done.
Hmm.
That trade is official, and it was just Dragic and Achua. They didn't need to add anything else to it or anything like that. So that is important, to them, just that's where it was. So the Heat, we'll close the book on the Heat and then we'll go to the Raptors. The Heat also, they re-signed Omer Yurtseven, who's been kind of the standout of the early, was it the California Classic, I
Hmm.
think, was
Yep.
that
California
summer league.
Classic.
Yeah, he was kind of the standout there, played great for the Heat in summer league, and now we'll see what he does in the Vegas Summer League starting on Sunday,
Yep.
with the Celtics tipping off the first game there. So just throw that one in there. But yeah, so that kind of closes the book on the Heat. But good on the Heat to get Lowry to take a little bit less, that they didn't have to make that trade any bigger. Uh, Raptors side,
Masai.
I know we've got a few things to talk about. Yeah, let's start with the big one, Masai. That's, kind of in some ways, that's the biggest move they made this
Mm-hmm.
offseason. We know his contract was up. We don't know exactly what the deal was with that, because it was kind of one of those weird things. It felt like for months we heard his contract was done, and then but yet he was still
And
there.
teams were trying to
And
pry him away for a
yeah,
long for
yep.
years. Teams have been trying to pry
hmm
him out of
Yeah,
Toronto.
for years, absolutely. Yeah, teams have been making runs at
Yeah.
him, and but he's staying there. We don't know what the deal years are, or the dollars, or anything like that. All we know is it's said for the foreseeable future and for a long term commitment and those kind of things. And he clearly is very happy there. They're also going to allow him to continue to do his work with the Giants of Africa program, which is his way to through basketball boost African countries. He's heavily involved with the Basketball Africa
Mm-hmm.
League as well. Really cool that he gives back to his native continent there, and does all he can there. But he adds the title of well, what did we say? Emperor Supreme of
Emperor
all
Supreme,
things Canada.
Supreme
Um,
Commander of Raptors forces, I think it is.
Something like
Something
that.
like
Yeah,
that.
I think it's officially vice chairman and
Okay.
president Toronto Raptors. So that's this is not just title inflation, I don't think, like we see where, right, it used to be the person who ran the basketball operation side was called the general
Yeah.
manager, and then about a half decade or so ago we started to get these presidents of
Right.
basketball operations, and they're still general managers and all these other things. Vice chairman is a little bit bigger of a role, because I think he now has a bigger overall role
Mm-hmm.
in the say of the team. He's not quite part of the ownership group there, as they're owned by like kind of a conglomerate. The Raptors are, but yeah, but good on him, good on them for keeping him. And then a couple moves that he made, Kem Birch,
Yep.
re-signing there. They're going to use their part of their MLE, because if you remember, they had no rights on Kem Birch because they picked him up after he was bought out by Orlando. But the Canadian native going to actually hopefully go back home with the Raptors this
Right.
season. 3 years, 20 million. I like that a lot for them. They needed a center. I think Kem Birch is a pretty good player. I think he's a little underrated. And then Ishmael Wainwright, and I know this is the point where people are like, what, who? Um, this is a guy who graduated out of Baylor a few years ago. He's been playing overseas. He's part of the Ugandan national team. So it sounds like there was some connection through through the different things that Masai Ujiri does in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, is maybe how they found him. But they're bringing him in, and this is a kind of low cost flyer with the Raptors that tends to work out more often than not.
Yeah.
So right now you may not know his name, but let's see if in a few months how we feel about Ishmael Wainwright.
Yep. And Ken Birch, I was a little bit surprised at the dollar amount, but you know what? Like he's got a lot of talent. He's an interesting addition for the Raptors
Yeah.
that could really pay off for them. So I'm not going to say that's a bad
Yeah,
deal by any
six,
means.
7 million.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um,
Yep.
Lou Williams returning to Atlanta
Lou
Hawks had
Williams.
a number of
Yeah.
contenders that were after him, including the Los Angeles Lakers. But Lou Williams for $5 million returns to Atlanta, staying home.
Yep. Perfect timing too. That tweet, literally, that it's official, just
Oh,
came across my
cool.
tweet deck.
That
So
works out.
yeah. So Lou Williams, yeah, back to the to the Hawks. We'll see what his role is, because it sounds like they will again, if that trade with Boston and Sacramento ever actually happens, they'll acquire DeLon Wright, who will probably take over most of the primary backup point guard role. But Lou Williams isn't really a point guard. He's a scoring guard
Mm-hmm.
off your bench. So I like this. He's probably at the point in his career where he is more of a Energizer Bunny type of guy, where it's, boy, we need somebody to get us going, and you throw him out there and say, hey, go shoot us into this game, or all right, you're going to shoot us all the way out, and then we'll figure it out from there. But yeah, I mean, it's for $5 million, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Hawks really kind of bringing the band back together after an unexpected run to the East
Yeah,
Finals.
I think he makes sense to stick there, and yeah, good for him. Speaking of good for him, myself and all the other residents of Randall Island were excited to see that Julius Randle got a 4-year, $117 million deal.
Big
Remember, there was a
time.
point where Julius Randle, a lot of people were saying, oh, he's never going to be that good, doesn't have the kind of wingspan you need, doesn't shoot well enough from three, all that kind of stuff. He has worked and worked and worked and worked and developed his game, and he's bounced between a few different places. Now here he is, settling in New York, 4-year,
Yep.
$117 million deal. Great stuff for Julius Randle.
Big time, well earned. I always think back to what it was, mere minutes right into his first
Oh,
game of his
I
career
hate
when he
that
got
moment.
hurt.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so
Gross.
I think, just from that moment to now, it's gonna be so cool. So one of my favorite things last year was how cool it was when his son was there to
Hmm.
give him his most improved player award
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for that stuff as a dad, and I'll avoid getting all weepy here on the show. But yeah, I'm psyched for him, and the Knicks, this is the first time they've really kind of committed big money, to a guy for longer than a couple years. So, but it sounds like there's an option at the end of that one. So, him and Fournier for the next few years on the books, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And then just going official, because it'll pave the way, is Kemba Walker was waived
Sure.
by the Oklahoma City Thunder, so that'll pave the way for him to join the Knicks maybe as soon as officially as today.
All right.
We could have a sense on that one.
Danny Green. Danny Green finally lands
Yeah,
somewhere
back to the
back to the
Sixers.
76ers. 2-year, $20 million deal. I think that's pretty fair for Danny Green. Still showed himself to be a
Yep.
quality wing defender and a guy who can hit the outside shot. So nice deal there for him.
Yeah. Little bit of confusion. His podcast partner broke the
Yep,
news, which I thought was
that's
fun,
right.
and pretty cool. But he said no. Well, I forget what he said. He said 2-year deal. Then Woj said no options. My guess is when this one comes through, we're gonna find out that second year is non-guaranteed,
Uh,
which would make both of them right. It was a 2-year deal with no options. Someday we'll spend time on the show again during the down period explaining the difference between a team option and a non-guarantee,
right.
because there are meaningful ones that do matter, especially when it comes to no trade clauses and the like. But yeah, that's my guess. But yeah, that's more than fair for Danny Green. Sixers gonna be up against the tax. So
Hmm.
George Niang, there was some speculation, would he come out of the biannual exception amount, or would he come out of the non-taxpayer MLE? He's going to come out of the MLE now versus the biannual. He
Right.
will not be a biannual signing because they will not hard cap themselves to do that.
All right. Let's stick with Green. Javante Green with the Bulls for
Yeah,
two
back
years.
to the
Yep,
Bulls.
back there.
Yeah, don't have a ton to say about this
No.
one. I really like Javante Green. If you guys have never checked it out, his Twitter handle, you can just look him up as Javante Green and it'll pull it up because it's something like two extreme bounce or something like that. He does one of the most ridiculous dunks on the pinned tweet on his Twitter handle that you
Oh,
will ever
I
see.
gotta check this
He's
out.
literally standing flat-footed underneath the basket, ball on the ground. He picks it up and puts it between his legs and dunks.
Wow.
Flat-footed from the ground. No run up, nothing, just jumps, puts it between his legs and dunks. It's unreal. This guy is, if he, we always throw out, if this guy ever got in a dunk contest, I think would win the dunk contest. His first experience, do you remember the first time we saw him? I think we watched him together. It was at Summer League.
I don't, but I.
Maybe you weren't there. He tried to dunk everything on everybody all week long. And by the end, we were like, the Celtics have to bring this guy to training camp. And they did. And then he fought his way onto the roster and he stuck. He was part of the Daniel Tice salary dump trade at the trade deadline last year. And now he's going to stick in Chicago. So I'm happy for him. He's one of Jason Tatum's best buddies. And they set Celtics Twitter all going crazy because they linked up and put, I think, an Instagram post together with Shamrocks on it. So everybody thought he was headed back to Boston. But no, 2 years in Chicago. So good for
I'll
him.
stick there. Willie Hernan
Yeah.
Gomez to the Pelicans,
Yeah. Back to
staying
the
there for
Pelicans.
3 years.
Yep. Depth move
Hmm.
behind Jonas Valanciunas up front now. He's good backup center. We don't know, unfortunately, what's going to go on with Jackson Hayes at this point.
Yeah.
That situation, scary, ugly for all parties involved. Hopefully everything ends up okay with Jackson Hayes and everybody else there. But good depth piece to kind of just keep things rolling forward if you're the Pelicans as best you can. I don't know what to make of that team. We'll spend more time
Yeah.
on individual teams later, but it is a really confusing offseason out of the Pelicans.
Yeah, I didn't like a lot of what they did, but again, we can break them down individually on a later date here. But Frank Kaminsky back to Phoenix for 1 year, solid depth. They already brought in JaVale McGee, but he is a floor spacing big for them to turn to.
Yep, McGee's going to get the bulk of the minutes, and then Kaminsky will be the guy who kind of plays hey, we need somebody with a little bit of range role.
And then from
So
there,
and then Rodney
yes.
Magruder. waived by the Detroit Pistons. That'll happen today. His contract was set to come fully guaranteed at about $5 million. So they'll waive him. We'll see, if he'll catch on somewhere
Mhm.
because he's an NBA player. But we'll see. So yeah,
And then
I
from
think that's all the
right,
moves.
and then we wanted to finish. It's a little bit of
Yeah,
Damian
run through
Lillard.
who's left. Oh yeah,
Damian
let's talk Damian
Lillard.
Lillard, and then we'll talk who's left on the
The
market.
Portland Trailblazers
Yeah,
didn't really make any big moves, and the thought was that they would. I mean, it's hard to make a move in the NBA when every team in the NBA knows that you need to make a big move, right? Because they're going to hold that against you. But still, didn't really get much done to improve the team. And I mean, look, the rumblings that Damian Lillard could ask out are only going to get louder the longer the Blazers stay in their current situation.
yeah. I don't know if it was last night, yesterday afternoon. I don't know when he was asked, but he was asked about it while at the Olympics. I think it was probably over Zoom. Somebody asked him. It sounded like, but just did he have thoughts? And he first started with, I don't know. I really haven't been looking at
Mhm.
it. I'm locked in here in the Olympics. Totally
Right.
respectable answer. No issue with that. But then he clearly had looked, and I mean, these guys live on Twitter, so of
Yeah.
course they know what the hell's going on. Even if they're catching up, off a 8 to 12 hour
Yeah.
delay due to the time difference. I mean, they see everything. But his kind of follow up is he gave a longer answer. If he had just cut it there, it would have been like, all right, no story, move on. But then he said, yeah, we didn't really get the guys we wanted to
Right.
get. And that was like, oh, so clearly the man has seen some stuff. Now, nobody followed up and said, well, explain, who
Right.
did you want to get? Because, I mean, you didn't have a lot of spending power or anything, but yeah, just still doesn't seem overly happy. I don't know what happens when he returns to the States in a few days. Gold medal game tonight as we're recording
Hmm.
this on Friday. They'll probably, my guess is, leave Japan sometime tomorrow. A lot of times they don't stick around for the closing ceremonies or any of that stuff. So I don't even know how that's going to work this
Right.
year because I know individuals, athletes were being told they had to leave when they were done. So I don't know what that's going to be. But yeah, my guess is they'll be headed back. And maybe next week we hear a message out of him. It feels like he really doesn't want to say the words "I want to
Right.
trade."
But that kind of
Right? Isn't
feels
that
like
how it
that's
kind
where
of
this is
feels?
headed. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah, feels like that's where it's headed to everybody. And I think if I was a Portland Trailblazers fan, if he said today, tomorrow, early next week, whatever, I want to trade. I'm done. I've given you everything I can. I would say, yep, can't even argue with that. Best of luck
Right.
with wherever you go. I think the challenge is if you drag it out and it becomes like a James Harden situation, it has the potential to get a little ugly with the fans and I'm not saying he's not going to play hard and show
No, no,
up and
no.
do
He
his
will.
thing and all that, but just it's hard to make big trades like that in season just because you have all the extra stumbling blocks against you as far as roster sizes and all that other stuff. So not impossible, of course.
Hmm.
I mean, Harden got dealt in season on a massive contract, but we'll see. All right, you want to do a quick run through of who's left?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look,
Free
I,
agent
I
wise?
think the top of the list, you've got Dennis Schroder right now still left.
Yep.
We'll see where he goes from
Yep.
there. A
Yeah.
few other guys that are
I think probably had Paul
mhm,
Millsap, Laurie Markkinen, Josh Hart.
who's
So,
restricted.
yeah, a couple restricted guys in Markkinen and Hart. I'm very curious to see what happens. There was news this morning that Laurie Markkinen wants out of
Hmm.
Chicago. Josh Hart had kind of made waves that he wanted out of New Orleans, but my guess is I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys just signed the qualifying offer
Yeah.
at this point. I know that neither one of them wants to, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it went down. Somebody's going to get a helpful veteran big man in Paul Millsap. Who that is, I don't really know. Jared Vanderbilt, the guy I like, I think it's kind of becoming clear as a restricted free agent. His market's limited, so he's probably headed back to Minnesota. James Ennis, a shooter on the wing, feels like he's played for a lot of
He
different
has.
teams, but now Avery Bradley. Sounds like he's fully healthy, ready to go. I think he can still help a team who needs some defense at the guard position. Alfred Payton, I had a report last night along with I think it's Evan Sidery, I think is how you say that. I apologize if I'm butchering that. Sounds like he is going maybe to the Phoenix Suns. I think they're looking to run back their campaign magic
Hmm.
there. But yeah, then after that, it starts to get kind of we're getting down
Right.
to it here with players. So we're basically done. I think couple guys that's still gonna find homes here, and then where Ben Simmons watch is still on. We don't know what's happening with that one, and then could we all be on Damian Lillard watch? I think Sixers fans are hoping in Ben Simmons watch and Damian Lillard watch become one, and they
And then
kind
they
of
work a
merge
trade.
together and become a
Right.
swap. I don't know that will happen, but yeah. So, but yeah, we're down to it, man. It went
It
fast
really did.
this year. I mean, it was lightning speed this year. How quickly everything whipped through.
Absolutely. It went so fast. And this is not normal that things move this quickly, but here we are. The NBA offseason flew by us already. Free agency, again, a few players still out there, but for the most part, a lot of the deals have been struck already. Man, it still blows me away that it was like 2 days and done. Like all the cap space was spent. All the
Yep.
players knew where they were going. No tampering, of course. They just managed to get it all done very, very
Of course
quickly.
not.
And here we are now. Now we're getting ready for summer league.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, summer league starts on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
Sunday afternoon. That'll run for several days. Everybody plays. What is it? 4 games
Yep.
scheduled, and then there'll be a fifth game in the playoff championship round, whatever the heck they want to call it there. So yeah, that'll be that'll be that's always fun, right? We always love summer league, and let's all overreact and decide how good
Yes.
these
Let's
guys
do
are
it.
going to be, and after 5 minutes of play, there in the summer league. So yeah, so it's we'll see. With that one, I'm excited because last year not having a summer league, we have a few more third year guys
Yeah.
that are going to be there than usual. So that's kind of fun to have some extra guys like for the Celtics. Romeo Langford's going to play as a third year guy. He probably would not have played most years, but he's a guy who needs some reps and those kind of things. So yeah, it's funny. Word of advice, guys, don't bet on summer
Oh,
league. And I
no.
mean, if you bet, you're gonna bet. I get it. I'm speaking to the wall, but that's almost worse than betting on preseason football
Right.
games. Like this is, these aren't even guys who are on the roster. At least there, you might be able to say, well, the backup quarterback could be a starter, and he's gonna, run some stuff up. Which Trevor, I didn't even know there was a preseason football game last night until it flashed across my Twitter timeline. Like that's how out I've been, or how let's not say out on football because I'm not out, how locked in on the NBA I've been.
I knew it was happening. I did not have a chance to watch it. I caught some of the
No,
highlights, but
I
that was
yeah.
about it. But
All I saw was everybody was complaining that there was no touchdowns to like the third quarter or
yeah, it
something,
wasn't
and
pretty.
I was like, yeah, it's
But
the
it's mostly
Hall of Fame
backups,
game.
so
That's always the
yeah.
worst one. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's yeah, guys, it's flying. So we're just, I think, looking forward, we'll have summer league reactions
Mm-hmm.
coming for you guys for sure. We'll continue to break down because clearly there's still a few transactions we're waiting on and a couple homes, so we'll keep coming back to you. But yeah, but we're gonna do summer league breakdowns and really talk about what we saw in the games and those kind of things. It's always a fun time because there's basketball all day too, so you
Yep.
can't beat that. Well, all afternoon and evening on my end of the world. I know, out there it's all day. It starts right around lunchtime and beyond. So, but yeah, super excited. We still get a ton of content to come, and then we'll do team previews and all that sort of stuff coming down the line. So we've got more than enough stuff for you here coming on Front Office Show all the way up to the start of the season.
That's right. So make sure you do subscribe, turn on those notifications as well, and of course, don't forget to like this video. Appreciate it, everybody. It's been a fun free agency. Now we're going to look ahead to Summer League. A few little odds and ends that'll still happen here for free agency. And of course, we will talk about those as well. Till next time, everybody, stay safe and see ya.